Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Sunday's Coming podcast. I'm here with Kaleb.
Hey.
And my friend Cody.
What's up?
Thanks for making the trek up, man.
Yeah.
It's beautiful weather here in Chicago, and yeah, we're stoked to have you, man.
It was nice seeing some tall trees because we don't
Right.
have those around us.
Yeah, because you're from what city?
Well, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, really?
but
Okay.
I live in Dallas.
Nice.
My family is all from that kind of Cleveland area, Elyria,
Yeah, yeah.
that, whatever. So
Interesting.
It's fun.
That's awesome, man. When did you leave Ohio?
Right out of high school.
Okay.
I moved to work at a church right out of high school and moved to Dallas.
Dude, that's awesome, man.
Texas, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I was thinking about before you came in today, like when I would have met you or interacted with you for the first time. I feel like it would have been 3 years ago when you're still at
2022,
yep,
23.
when you were at MXU. And yeah, it was a new season for me, stepping out of ministry and jumping into a non-ministry type position. And so, yeah, interacting with guys like you. And I feel like I had remembered like seeing your name or face somewhere from a previous role you were at too, at Renewed Vision. So it's just like, oh man,
Small world.
small world, dude. And now we're here sitting at this table in Chicago. And so stoked to have you,
Yeah.
man.
And thanks for being the very first guest of season 3 of Sunday's Coming. So
course.
It
you're
is.
setting the bar for
feels-
everyone that
yeah.
comes after you. Right?
Super,
No
super
pressure.
high.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
we
going
get
to be
some
great.
good takeaways from this one.
Let's do it. Let's go.
I love it. But like I was saying a minute ago before we started the conversation, is just so much of the way the conversations that we have here at the podcast around this table are structured is around like unique stories that people have. And I think I had said everyone gets to where they are like through a different, random, and unpredictable journey. And that's really one of the cool things about these conversations is hearing like people's stories, their learnings, their ups and downs and all that kind of stuff. And I think it can be super inspiring and encouraging, and it makes the people listening who are in the same kind of boat and doing a lot of the same kind of things that you do every day, which we'll get into here in a second, like feel like they're maybe not crazy and they have the same challenges as other people. And hopefully it's an encouragement. So maybe just give us a quick overview of who's Cody, what do you do, what kind of things are you involved in, and like how did you arrive there?
Yeah, so I don't want to be the one to like go back to my beginning and be like, this is an interview. But at the same time, like my beginning is kind of what pushed me to where I am.
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
great.
So I gave my life to Jesus when I was 5 at a Good Friday service. And growing up, like I grew up in a small Baptist church, like 200 people, we sang hymns.
Yep.
And my mom would bring me out of, the kids' church to big church because once a month they started introducing a band. And she saw that I was interested in that. And so like just from a young age started like being interested in creative arts, musical things. Even at 4 years old, I asked my mom, what are these things that are on this paper? And it was music notes.
Yeah.
And so she got me in music lessons at like 4.5, and I took them for 12 years for piano. And so like just from a young age, just all that sort of like desire for creativity and music and all that sort of thing. So junior high, I started leading worship for our youth group. Senior high, at this point, I was at a large multi-site church, so different experience.
Yeah.
But at senior high, I was the student worship leader, but like I oversaw all of our campus student worship teams. So
That's crazy.
I was the one that would audition them and schedule them on playing center, that sort of thing.
And you're still in high school.
Yeah, I was in high school at this point.
That's wild.
And then Sundays I would lead worship too, but I wasn't like on staff or anything. But because of that, I had a lot of experience just in high school, junior high, and I had like videos showing all that experience. And so going out of high school, I was planning to go to a Christian college, and this was 2013. So this was like, worship was mainstream, but it wasn't like every school had a worship degree.
Yeah, for sure.
There was Liberty, there was Grace Bible, and there was like one other one. So like there wasn't much out there. And so I was planning to go to school. The senior pastor at our church sat me down. He was like, hey, we're not going to pay you more if you get a degree, and we're not more likely to hire you if you have a degree. So are you sure you want to go get a degree? And I was like, okay, well, I feel like you're telling me not to go, but I prayed about it. My parents and I talked about it, and just financially it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, if I want to in the future, I could. There's nothing holding me back from going and doing it. But I went to a Christian school for 8th grade through 10th grade. I had Bible classes. I'd been leading worship. I knew the production side of that. So I was like, I have the experience. Why don't I just see what happens and try to go into ministry?
Yeah.
So right out of high school, I went into ministry full time. it was supposed to be part-time. I took a job at a church plant. A week later, they made me full-time as a worship pastor.
Got it.
As an 18-year-old.
That's crazy, man. And that was a different church than the multi-site that you were doing that
Yeah,
in.
I was in Ohio, living in Ohio. That's where I grew up.
Got it.
But then right out of high school, I moved to Texas to take that job at a church plant.
What was that like? You're 18, you graduate from high school, you move to a different state, you take on a new job at a church plant. Like, just give us some highlights from that season.
That's wild.
Yeah. I would say like, I remember one day before I left, like my mom and I like sat down in a corner crying because I knew this is what I was supposed to do, but I also knew I was going to miss my family, miss everything. Like this, all I ever knew was being there. And so it was definitely like a leap of faith, but God obviously provided. Like a week later, he made my role full-time. I wasn't even sure if I could afford to live there.
Yeah.
So it was crazy. And most senior pastors are not going to hire an 18-year-old worship leader.
No,
At least not to be their main person.
Nor should they, maybe? I mean, like...
yeah. And honestly, yeah, that's true. Like, I mean, I would say I was a little bit different at that point than most 18-year-olds because I had experience.
Yeah.
But still, like, immature, you know, brain not fully developed.
Oh,
There's a lot going on there.
A lot going on there. The reality though is like, as you described, even in like junior high school, like everybody that is, someone took a chance on them, you know, and gave them more opportunity than they should have had at that exact moment necessarily. And like, that's part of the way you grew and, you know, got the experience you have now. And like,
that's
crazy.
every step along the way.
Yeah.
Someone's taking a chance on me when
Exactly.
a role I probably shouldn't have been in. And then I got in that role. I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah, man.
But around that though, if I didn't have good mentors in my life, I wouldn't have kept growing.
Yeah.
And so like as an 18-year-old, I would have failed really hard if the senior pastor hadn't really poured into me.
Totally.
And the executive pastor at that church, he
That's
like
good.
became a mentor to me. And
Talk a little bit about that. Like, what did it look like at that stage for them to invest in you, coach you? Like, what did that relationship look like, feel like week to week?
yeah, well, the executive pastor at the church was also the youth pastor because it was a church plant,
Right.
so he was doing a little bit of everything.
Totally.
And he was upper 20s, so he had more maturity, but still was growing himself, right?
Yeah.
But he had a lot more experience than I had because he had been in church ministry already for multiple years, and he had worked at 2 different churches. And so he took me on. He would take me out to lunches. We'd get together, have relational things, and then I was part of his Bible study. And so like he was just constantly pouring into me, asking me how I'm doing, and also giving me feedback, like, hey. You didn't do a good job at doing that. Having that conversation.
Yeah.
Think about how you could reword that.
There you
That sort of
go.
thing. Like he was very actually like upfront and honest about like these things need to be worked on.
Yeah.
And that helped me a ton.
Yeah. I think that's the like rubber meets the road is like leaders having the guts to have the hard conversation with people about the things that aren't quite where they need to be.
Yeah.
And like being willing to have that uncomfortable conversation and not avoid it or pass it off to somebody else, or like those are where those are things that you remember now and that you learned from.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think too, like being 18, doing that in a multi-site context previously, like it would be very easy for another 18-year-old who was in that position of leadership to be very cocky coming into the next thing, be like,
Well, I would say I was.
that's good. No, that's good. Yeah.
I mean, it was just part of like the growing and the
Yeah.
growing.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
I came in thinking like, I know what I'm doing.
Of course.
And this is a small church.
Yep.
They don't
Yeah.
know what they're doing.
Yep.
Yes.
The benefit for me, and actually part of a detriment to me later on, but the benefit at that time was it was a military community. So they were okay with receiving feedback. They were okay with like being told what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's what they were used to.
Interesting.
So,
is interesting.
but I still grew during that time. Still got better at it.
Yeah.
But then I went to my next church, and it was like, oh, I can't talk like that because that's not what they're used to.
That's so interesting.
And so I didn't actually learn like not to behave like that when I was there. I learned that in the next season. But that was just, I still grew in that moment, but it was still like, it was interesting how how all that works.
Well, it's such a good point of like cultural awareness and just understanding the uniquenesses and dynamics of each context you're in and how they can be just wildly different and how to be effective and like what people respond well to. And that's really interesting. I never would have thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next church I worked at, my wife and I had just met. So I had moved back to Ohio.
Okay.
And so we weren't married yet. We were boyfriend and girlfriend. I think we were engaged at this point.
Okay.
She came to a worship team rehearsal, and afterwards she was like, "Do you realize like how you said that to them?" I was like, "No, what are you talking about?" And she was like, "Yeah, it was very blunt, and they don't receive things well like that." I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like that, it sounded normal to me.
Yeah, right. Guys, just be better.
That's what
Like,
spouses
what else do I need to
are
say?
good
Yeah.
for, man. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What church were you at that point?
It was called Gateway Church in Ohio.
Ohio. Nice.
And that's when I actually started learning about like Enneagrams and everything else, and like realized I'm an 8. And so I learned about the downsides of an 8. And like being an 8 means I have a clear vision and I want to go forward and I want to move forward regardless of what's happening.
Yeah.
So it's good because I'm a visionary, but I also have to know how to slow down, take other people into consideration, take how they receive feedback into consideration, and all of that. And I didn't learn that until like that season. My wife was the one that started that. Really.
Yeah. There. 8's on the Enneagram. I'm a 6, and so I have had so many 8 bosses, and have had to learn like, hey, I want to beat around the bush for most things when I'm in conflict. But to meet them where they're at too, like I have to basically match your energy
and directness
and my directness. Otherwise, like I won't be taken seriously, basically. So that's fascinating. I think I love the Enneagram because of that. There's lots of people who don't love it, but I think it's awesome because of that. Because just like the way that
they just don't love it because they feel too seen and vulnerable.
Classic 8s don't love it.
Right, exactly.
No, that's cool, man. That's awesome. And I love that your spouse is the one that was calling that out in you. That's what great wives do. So that's awesome.
But going back to the first church I worked at, I would have probably stayed there a lot longer. But the reason I left had to do with like I needed to get home and recover from something. So I walked into my roommate's room and he was cleaning a gun, and it went off and he shot me.
What?
Yeah. So he shot me in the chest right here. So it's like right opposite the heart. He was in shock, and so he said, "Did I just shoot you?" And I was like, "Yes." And I got down on the ground, told him to call 911. Told him to put pressure on it. It wasn't bleeding, but just in case.
It wasn't bleeding. You say it like you're like, wouldn't it normally bleed?
Well, it was a 22. So
Okay.
22 is quite smaller hole.
Yep. Sure. Yep.
But they cause more damage internally because they bounce around.
Yeah.
And so it causes more deaths in households than any other gun. But he didn't know there was a round it was a revolver. So like the one round was in the spot where he didn't see. But still, you shouldn't point a gun at someone and pull the trigger like that. It's just like, you don't do that. And he was in the military, so he knows that even more because this was in that military time.
Wow, dude. Wow.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That's crazy.
Yeah. So I was life flighted to the hospital. I was there for 25 days. They didn't know why I wasn't healing.
Okay.
But they ended up putting dye inside of me, putting me under radiation, and saw like a leak internally.
Okay.
And then they were able to go in and heal that up. But during that time, I felt like my lung had collapsed. They put chest tubes in my side. They were trying to get all the fluid out. And I felt like I was like never going to sing again because I wasn't recovering.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is my job. Like, I sing. So like, what am I supposed to do? And I was just thinking like, okay, I started doing graphics at church. Maybe I'll do graphics. And like, I started thinking through all these things. I never doubted that God would like have a future for me, but I did doubt that it was like that.
Yeah.
And then praying through all of it, we had doctors who were strong Christians. They worked with other doctors around the country and figured it all out. And then a week after they, did all that stuff inside me, I went home and I led worship on stage again. Wow. And like, I went from not thinking I was ever going to sing again to a week later on stage, singing No Longer Slaves. And
Dude, that is insane. What happened to the guy who
you're still best friends to this day, right?
He was the best man in my wedding.
I bet that was a great best man speech. That is amazing. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It took me like 30, 60 days to like get a lot closer again.
Yeah.
Because I was man,
I'm
like, you shot me.
Understandable.
But I did forgive him. Yeah.
Holy
wild,
crap,
man.
dude. That is insane, man. Well, I'm so glad you're okay. I don't think I've ever met anybody who got shot. So that's pretty cool, but that's wild.
I don't wish anyone gets
Yeah,
shot.
right.
But-
Imagine.
Cool that you survived, my friend.
Holy
That's the cool
crap,
part.
dude. That's insane.
So that was in Dallas?
Yeah, that wasn't.
And so you mentioned going to Ohio. to recover? And it's like,
Yeah,
what did that look like from both physically and just like spiritually,
Right.
mentally,
Yeah.
emotionally, right?
So, I mean, I had been there for 2.5 years in Texas, and I had friends,
Mm-hmm.
but I still didn't have family there. And so after that happened, there were still like physical things remaining.
Yeah.
When all the dust settled in my body, like usually you have like this curved area that protects, I think it's your kidney down here.
Okay.
Mine was like a triangle. So my lung would hit it and it would hurt.
Wow.
Oh,
And it took a while for that to like stop. I was still able to do things, but it was different. And so I had a physical side of it, but I also had like the emotional, spiritual side of like, I'm alone here. I mean, I have mentors in my life, I have friends, but I don't have my family, my parents, like, and I was 20.
yeah.
So, so I moved back to Ohio, and that's when I met my wife on Tinder.
That is amazing, dude.
I'm sure there's a whole story there we
Wow,
could
dude.
unpack further as well.
That's crazy, man. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay, so the role that you jumped into at the new church, were you also worship pastor there?
Yeah, the title was creative arts director.
Okay.
But I led worship.
Got it.
I kind of just took the first job that was available to me when I moved
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
And so that is actually kind of the job that led me to Renewed Vision in the end.
Got
it. It was a position where the role was paid for by an outside source for a year, as the
okay.
church was hoping to grow during that time.
Sure, yeah.
So they could sustain the position. But they didn't tell me that when I got hired.
Classy.
Classy. Wow.
Yeah. And so towards the end of that, they told me, hey, like, this is what happened and we're not growing at the level we thought we would. They still ended up keeping me on a whole nother year.
Okay.
Full time. So like they went out of their way to keep me on.
Yeah.
But towards the end of that, they're like, hey, we're really gonna have to go part time. And that's when I was planning to get married. And so I was like, I can't do that. I can't afford to support a family like that. And so
Yeah.
yeah.
How, I mean, for you to even stay on another year after finding that out, like, did that do anything to your like relationship with the church? Because like I feel like that would be
Puts
hard
a
to
level
hear.
of uncertainty.
Yeah,
There was a level of uncertainty.
Totally.
I was annoyed, but I wasn't like, church hurt, I hate this, I'm upset.
Yeah.
Like it was fine.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it wasn't fine, but
Yeah. Wow, dude, that's
but
crazy.
it didn't make me want to quit ministry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was just
Yeah. Well, so you mentioned in that role you were the creative arts pastor director. Like, so was that involving a lot more aspects of the ministry than you had done previously, more focused on worship, or like what did it look like to kind of expand the creative oversight? I suppose.
sure. Yeah. It was just what the title was.
Got it.
But even in both roles, the first church I worked at and the second church I worked at, it was worship, communications, tech.
Yeah.
Got it.
Because there were some
Everything,
churches that had to do
IT,
everything.
printers,
For sure.
Yeah.
you know.
Printers.
But some of that was like I chose to do those things because I saw those were gaps in the church.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to take photos until I started working at the first church, but there was no photos being taken. So I'm like, I'm gonna learn how to do it.
Yeah.
So I did that. And then our social media like was terrible. So I was like, I'll just take over social media.
Yeah.
You know, it's like just figure it out, like learn
Yeah.
it, do it. If there's a gap, why not fill it?
Yeah.
If it's gonna help us.
Yeah, that's one of the things where it's a little bit. You want to have good expectations and boundaries, but I do think it's really inspiring when a church staff person sees their role as supporting the whole and not just like a narrow lane, and has interest and desire to just, hey, how can I help? It's that like servant mentality of. I think that can be taken advantage of. So like wanting to have good boundaries about it, but there's something to be said for a church staff person that like has energy to serve as a youth group leader, you know, or has energy to like help out in this way or whatever. And like, that's just a cool dynamic. And I think it demonstrates, hey, this isn't a job. It's like, I'm passionate about this community and I want to serve it in different ways.
Versus, you know, like the amount of times that I would talk crap about the social media that was happening at my church, but I did nothing to help them with it, versus just be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe communications is putting this stuff out or making these, you know, this graphic design.
See, if you were an 8, you would have gone right to it.
I totally would have fixed it. I'd be like, let me fix it for you. But that is cool, man.
Yeah, I would say though, you got to be careful not to like, if someone already has an existing lane,
Yeah.
you don't want to push yourself into that lane unless you're invited. Or,
Yeah.
But when you build relationships with people, it starts to open up that.
Yeah.
And it gives you, you know, I think, especially if you're in like a weekend heavy role in churches, so much of the visibility and just gravitational pull is towards that Sunday worship experience in a lot of the contexts that we come from.
Yep.
You know, just it's just reality, right? So if you're in like worship production, creative, focus on Sunday, to actually have exposure to like that Tuesday night ministry or that serving thing that happens on Saturdays or student min small group on Sunday nights, like it's just a helpful context, like the other things outside of your thing that are happening around the church, and just the cool things that are happening that are outside of the spotlight in such an obvious way. I don't know.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how long were you at that church before transitioning?
I was also there
off?
2.5
Okay,
years total.
got it.
So both places are 2.5.
Yeah.
Different transitions for different reasons.
Yeah, yeah, very different reasons. What led you to go outside of the church? Because like everything you had done, I would assume for the last, you know, if you started in high school, you know, it could be coming on 10 years of doing basically worship ministry before you know, left like full-time ministry to go do that in a different seat. Like what caused you to consider going outside of another church, you know, in town or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, I want to say that there wasn't a lot of church hurt from that church, but there were other things that happened at that church that caused church hurt.
Of course.
One of them was like a theological thing. We had a new lead pastor that came in, and he drastically changed the direction of the church. And so that changed the way the services looked. That changed the way, and I don't even just mean like petty style things.
Yeah.
I mean like very drastic differences. Like we were a very modern black box church, and then we went like, we're gonna have an opening hymn, and then we're gonna have a thing where everyone reads together on screen, and then we're gonna sing a current song.
Yeah.
And then it's like, it was just like, that wasn't what I'd signed up for.
Sure.
But there was a theology background to the reason that they did that.
Yeah.
And I didn't agree with that theology either.
Yeah.
And so I was just kind of tired, and I didn't want to leave church ministry forever, but I was starting a family, and I was like, what can I do that's going to be financially good? And what, maybe there is ministry for me, and maybe I can do ministry part-time or contract or volunteer while working somewhere else. And so I just tried that. I just wanted to see like what happens.
Yeah.
And so there was actually a year first before me going to Renewed Vision where I worked at Chick-fil-A.
Okay.
And so I was actually the director of operations for a store. So I worked directly under the owner. He was never there, which is actually like, they're supposed to be there at Chick-fil-A. Like it's like if you're a franchisee, like you're there. He wasn't. So I ran the store. And so when I ended up applying to Renewed Vision finally, it was like they interviewed me and they saw my worship experience. They knew I knew their software, which was a plus. Even though I didn't have a ton of marketing experience, I did it in small churches. But they also saw Chick-fil-A, and they're like, Chick-fil-A leaders typically have a certain level of character.
Yeah.
They saw, I mean, I was leading 150 employees, so like I knew how to run teams. I knew how to do organizational things. And so that I think helped a lot towards me getting my role at Renewed Vision. Because like even though I was the marketing director of Renewed Vision, like they hired me without much marketing experience.
Yeah.
So I think it was a kind of culmination of like I knew the product, I knew their industry because I was a worship leader.
Yeah.
They saw my character and they saw like a little bits of marketing. And
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, it just goes back to what we were talking about earlier on someone taking a shot on someone that maybe doesn't have like checking every box, you know? I'm curious for you coming from ministry, obviously Chick-fil-A, more of a corporate environment, Renewed Vision. So I guess in any of those seasons, like what were some of the biggest shifts that you experienced just personally having to work in a different environment and being outside of that, you know, church ministry experience that you'd been in for so long before?
Yeah. Something I realized quickly was that number one, I had to make my faith real and my own because I feel like when you're working in church, you kind of live off of other people's faith too because you're just surrounded by it all the time.
Yeah.
And even if I didn't like have a strong personal devotional time on my own, I still was like receiving because I was leading worship. I was listening to messages. I was doing things all the time. And I was surrounded by other people doing the same thing. But then once you go and you work in the corporate environment, like that's not what you talk about, right? You're talking about the business. Yeah. So that was a big shift because then I had to like make my faith more personal and like I actually had to spend time with God, which was actually a better thing because before I thought I was doing that, I wasn't really doing it, and then now I had to learn how to do it and actually do it now. Yeah. So I would say that's one of the big things. Another big thing for me was realizing that churches expect more perfection than most businesses do. And I was like,
Say more about that. Let's unpack that a little bit.
I love the church I'm at now. But Renewed Vision was the best job I've ever had in my life. Like, they put trust in me because they hired me, and they're like, this guy knows what he's doing. Even though I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah. But they put me in a role and said, like, you are gonna do this. We trust you. Go do it. Where in the church world, like, that's not the case, because whoever's in charge, they typically want to have the say. Where I feel like a lot of times in the business world, at least my experience with a few different businesses now, is like, as long as you're following their vision, like, they just want you to go at it and get it done and make the money. And so it's like, it's a little bit different, because in the church world, it's like the ultimate visionary is a little bit more hands-on typically. Not always, but if you're working under Enneagram 8, they are. And so the first 2 churches I worked at were small, but I had seen this even when I was volunteering at the multi-site church. And since then, I've been involved with lots of churches, consulting. The church I'm at now is larger. So I know what it's like to work under other people where you're not the one in charge. But there is like, all of a sudden you are in charge. And that was a different experience for me.
The level of perfection, maybe micromanagement, can just be higher than outside of the church. I feel like I saw that as well very quickly after stepping out of the church and going, oh, this is like, there's more trust, I think, is the way that you're describing it in some ways, and for both good and bad, outside of ministry context.
I think too, like, I'm thinking of people that are listening to this that lead other staff or volunteers that maybe can find themselves in the seat of not allowing their team to have ownership and run and flex their creative muscles and sort of drive things. Like, something to kind of evaluate, right? Like, what is my interaction with those that I lead? What is the level of empowerment and freedom that's the right amount to give them, to let them have the latitude to come up with ideas that, like, I would never come up with, like all the direction and ideas coming from one person is actually very limiting, because you only have so many great ideas. So what does it look like to actually release some of that a little bit more, if you as a leader are tending to hold a little tighter to what they're doing?
I think I would say one of my biggest struggles today, though, like, I love empowering other people to do things. It's a big struggle of mine to empower the youngest of them to do things, because they don't have experience yet. And so it's always a struggle with me. And I'm young too, but like, I know how I was when I was 18, and I had experience. So then when someone comes in and they're 18, they don't have experience, but they have all the opinions in the world. I'm like, well, you got great opinions, but like, they might not be a great fit for our church. And so I want to empower people, but I also want them to catch the vision.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, what are the right number of, like, what does the boundary look like? Here's the sandbox you're playing in. But these are the boundaries. And, like you just mentioned, in the context of our church, here's what we do. And maybe that's not right for everyone, but like, what does it look like to create in that boundary? It's tough.
And I think it's also a really fine line between taking a chance on somebody who doesn't have the experience to do that, but while also being able to coach them and then be coachable and like open-handed to learn the things that they don't want. I would rather have an 18-year-old that is very open-handed than a 41-year-old who has all of the experience in the world for the last 15 years, 20 years, but isn't open-handed to do anything differently, to try new things or to learn. So yeah, it is a hard and fine line between doing that and coaching another generation.
Does it just
of
come back to humility, like we always say on this podcast? Like, whether you're an experienced person with lots of years of experience, or you're a young person with a lot of energy and not a lot of experience, like, or if you're the leader that is also having to temper the amount of control they express in any kind of team relationship, it's like approaching it with a level of open-handedness from any of the seats on the bus, with humility that, like, I don't have all the answers no matter what seat on the bus I'm in. I think that's important in every phase of the seasons that you might go through.
Yeah, humility is huge. And when I'm looking for like staff members or interns or whoever to step up and be in a leadership role, I'm looking for competency. I'm looking for character, but I'm looking for humility a ton, because it's a lot easier to empower someone to do something knowing that they're willing to learn and receive feedback than someone who's just going to go with their opinion all the time. And it might not actually be in the context of what makes sense for the church.
Right.
Yeah.
We have someone who was 14 and they're 15 now, but when they were 14, they're the ones who set up all of our lighting for us for our like programming.
Okay.
So from scratch, set up the board, like they did it all.
Got it.
And he's a 14-year-old.
That's crazy.
But I wouldn't have trusted him to do it if he wasn't humble enough to receive feedback.
Yeah.
Because I have other 14-year-olds on my team that I can't trust in that role because they just have like, oh, this would look cool and this would look
For
cool.
sure,
yeah,
yeah.
but not here, not now. And there's a reason why. And so like when you find those people who are competent, they're going to work hard, but they're also humble and willing to receive, like that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and that, like, maybe we will look back in 10 years and look at that 14-year-old and go, oh my gosh, he's now, or she is a TD or production person at some other local church and doing that full time because a guy like you took a chance on a 13, 14-year-old, to empower them and be like, hey, try this, do this differently. And I mean, it's what creates the itch in things that like we learn early in childhood and through our growing up years of the things that we want to pursue going into our career as we turn into an adult and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
I want to turn back to Renewed Vision though. So you step into this role, you're doing marketing. It's obviously very different than your church ministry context as you were describing, but like what were some of the key lessons that you learned in that seat that you took on? Because so spoiler alert, you're at a church again. So not to give away the ending, but like what were some of the core things that you learned in that seat that maybe were unique from a church context or that were super helpful as you stepped back into ministry, right?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things I learned was how to, I don't want to say the word fight, but how to fight for a goal or idea that I had healthily. Because when you're with a bunch of other leaders, like I was one of the department heads, but there's other department heads for other departments, and they might have a vision that contrasts with yours. And so you can try and like push your way in and be like, no, we're gonna do it this way. Or you can learn the room, read the room, and learn how people interact with each other. And I think building relationships is huge. And I think that's the first job that I like started doing the building relationships part well. Because there were people who were sitting next to me in level who at the beginning, like we butted heads hard. And every time I've been in a role anywhere, I've butted heads with someone. But that was the first role where I started learning, like, I need to get to know how they need to interact with the world and how they need me to respond to them. And really learning how to, like, have a relationship. Because then once I have that relational equity, I'm able to actually go and be like, here's my idea and here's why. And then they actually may support it more because they're friends now, right? And so that's helped me a ton just going to my next role. And then here now, the church I'm at now, every church along the way, every organization along the way, I've had that struggle, but it's gotten better and better and better because I've learned how to be more relational with people. And I don't just mean like relational, like, hey, we're hanging out. I mean like understanding them, understanding how they operate, understanding what they need to receive, because we also receive things differently. We all need to be responded to differently.
It's good.
Goes back to the Enneagram of, and what's interesting too is like, and maybe at Renewed Vision, there's, a lot of people who come from ministry and like knew what that world is. But like, do you feel like those things translated from the same things that we were just talking about of going, hey, I'm an 8. How do I, interact with my team there? But now you're outside of a church context and doing that in a more corporate setting was like, do you feel like those things translated in the same way that you were kind of doing that in a ministry context, specifically related like, to the Enneagram? Because it's a thing that, many of us,
everyone
many
have their Enneagram number on their door. So who is that?
People have an signature on their email.
Enneagram 8.
I don't know how to advertise that.
Right.
In college, we used to have, or every faculty and staff member had their strengths finder 5 things outside of their office door. It's like, it's funny.
I'm just gonna read that as I walk in.
No kidding. Like, oh, okay. Yeah.
So like I probably have high IQ and low EQ.
Okay.
Like I'm smart, but like the emotional intelligence, like reading the room, that's a learned thing. That is not a natural talent thing for me. And so that's part of the 8 is like,
Yeah.
If I was a high EQ and lower IQ 8, probably would have been fine.
Yeah.
But I think it all does correlate. I mean, just from the first job in ministry, the second job in ministry, and all of it has been a growth point for me as I'm learning to communicate with people, how they need to be communicated with. I would say what was different was going from the church job into Renewed Vision and Chick-fil-A. The church job, I didn't have a bunch of like people next to me that were making decisions. I was the worship leader. There wasn't a bunch of staff at that church. There was the lead pastor who would occasionally like tell me what to do. But so it was really more of me talking down to my team members. Where at Renewed Vision, I was learning how to talk to my peers.
Yeah.
And I don't want to mean like volunteers aren't your peers, but I just mean like hierarchy. You're in charge of them.
It's different. Yeah.
And so that has helped me then now where I'm at a larger church and I have a lot of peers. And so like now I know how to better communicate in the church world. And I think God may have been preparing me for that. He's like, I don't want you to go in a large church right now because not that I was seeking a large church, but I just mean like he might not have let me into one until now because he didn't think I was ready from like a relational standpoint.
Yeah.
That's good.
When you were in that transitional season, Chick-fil-A, Renewed Vision, and following that, did you also have this like thing in the back of your head of like, oh, I know that at some point in the future I want to go back into ministry, or was that not necessarily something that you were thinking about at that time?
The whole time I wanted to be in ministry, I just didn't feel like it was the right time. And I don't want to over spiritualize it too much, but I just didn't really feel like God calling me then in that moment to be in ministry.
Yeah.
However, throughout that whole time, I was involved with ministry. I was either a volunteer or a contract worship leader somewhere.
That's cool.
And for most of the time, like at one church, not like just jumping in and out of churches. So it wasn't like I was absent completely. I was still involved.
No, that's awesome, man.
I think it's helpful too, as a reminder to people that are at churches now. Like it can feel like this is the only thing I can do or should do. And to have just the freedom of, hey, there are seasons where maybe that's not the right thing. And it's okay to try something else, get other experiences, take a break. And, life is long. Maybe you'll, maybe not, you'll work at a church again. But like that season was really valuable for you in ways that just grinding ahead and trying to get the next church job wouldn't have been. So I think just sort of reminding church folk, there are other jobs that are really life-giving and learning opportunities and have a lot of impact that are outside of the walls of a church. And that sometimes that's the right season.
Yeah, and I would, to add to that, like before I had ever done anything else, my only thought was, okay, when I get older, what am I going to do? Because if I'm a worship leader, I can't be leading worship at 65. That's just weird.
Yep.
So I had always had that thought, but I had never touched the grounds anywhere else to be like, oh, there are other things I could do.
Sure.
Now I know there are.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily saying I would go back into marketing, but there are roles outside the church or inside the church that I could do that aren't worship leading.
Totally.
But I would never have known if I didn't try, or if I didn't even try to get involved in other ways in the church. If all I ever did was stay in that one path of like singing, like, I mean, at 65, I don't know what.
Be amazing.
Totally, man.
It might be great.
Maybe Andy Chrisman.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, man. That's awesome. That is also a very odd like topic that like
Age of worship leader.
the age of worship leaders and when do they start to age out? And
What does that even mean?
Oh, I've had a lot of worship pastors at 41, 42 be like, dude, I can feel the time, the clock ticking of when, they're going to want the other cool 21-year-old. And
That's a whole nother podcast.
it is a whole
Yeah,
other
it
Like
is.
what is the dynamic that you're talking about
Yeah.
right there, and anyway.
That's wild. Okay, so how long, I guess, were you at Renewed Vision, and like what led to your transition to the next thing? Because I think during that time you had, before we started, or maybe in the questionnaire you filled out, like, were you on the team that launched 7? Okay,
Yeah.
got it. So you were one of those guys that pushed us all to 7. That's great.
Otherwise, you'd be on 6.
Otherwise, we still be
Hey,
on
I
6.
still walk into churches where they're on 6.
I know, yeah.
And they're
Not
like,
many though. It's
We can't afford to.
Honestly, I know
I'm
6
like,
more
what?
than I know 7, probably at this point, just because I didn't.
I
yeah.
wouldn't want to know 6 anymore.
That's so funny.
It can do like a 16th of the things.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, no one wants to talk about it, but everyone looks back on old things with googly eyes, right?
Of course.
So like,
Always.
Preach.
everyone hated 6 when 6 was around.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was unusable on Windows.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very true.
Like hated it because it was buggy. I mean, it was bad. 5 was much better. So
Yep.
you should have just skipped 6 if you were
Right, right.
But
I don't walk into any churches using 5.
I know it's old. At this
Yeah,
point.
unfortunately.
It's like, I mean,
Or I do walk in and see a church even with 7, and they have 14 updates that are
They've
waiting
just
to
been
be waiting to be updated. They're like, we can't do it. We're too far behind now. Too scary. But
Anyway.
yeah.
That's fun.
So I was there for 3 years.
Okay.
And I wasn't planning on leaving. Loved it.
yeah,
But MXU actually approached me
Mm-hmm.
and said, "Hey, we're looking for a VP of marketing. We've seen your work at
Yeah.
Renewed Vision. We know that you oversee marketing there. Would you be interested in a conversation?"
yeah,
And so I went and had a conversation with them. They offered me double the salary I was making at Renewed Vision. I was like, "Okay,
Sounds good.
That's
Yeah.
nice."
Yeah.
I wasn't planning on leaving, but this sounds nice.
yeah,
Yeah. So I talked to Renewed Vision about it. They understood. They offered me some more to try and keep me, you know, the things businesses do.
of course.
But in the end, just felt like I was gonna try it. I was gonna try
Yeah.
something new.
yeah. Where were you living at that point? Like, where,
So
when
all
you,
this was remote.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, Renewed Vision was remote. MXU was remote.
Got it.
I
So
lived
you're still in Ohio.
Dallas.
Oh, in Dallas. Okay, at this point. Got it.
Well, I actually lived in Central Texas. We had moved to Central Texas from Ohio.
Got it. Okay.
But yeah, so I was there. I was working part time at a church that I had helped plant while I was at MXU
Got it.
and the last year of Renewed Vision.
Got it.
And so I was the worship pastor at that church. But that's during an MXU season. That's like immediately when I got to MXU, my heart started being like, I really want to be full time ministry. And financially, I had gotten into a bad spot because we had bought a house that required lots of work. And there was a lot of things that weren't mentioned in the inspection
Classic.
that ended up being like $45,000 in the first month.
Oh my gosh, dude.
And
That's not the thing you want to hear.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
it was bad. And we had just had a kid, and like, so we had 3 kids at this point, and we had a baby, and it was hard.
Yeah.
And so financially, I wasn't doing good because all my credit cards had piled up. MXU was paying me enough so that I
Yeah.
could actually start getting out of that. But
Yeah.
I was still in the middle of this, like, all this stuff. And then because my heart was in the church, I spent a ton of time doing what was a part-time role. I made it full-time to myself
Yeah.
Yeah.
because I cared so much about it. And then MXU, because I was the VP of a company, like that was very demanding. I had to make sure the company succeeded. Of
course.
that was my job, was
Yep.
to get the money.
Yep.
And that was a very different marketing experience than I had at Renewed Vision, where my marketing experience at Renewed Vision was like customer engagement, social media, visiting churches, talking about what they're doing, showing it off. Very different style of marketing than the business style of marketing that I was doing at MXU. And so I quickly realized like that was not the type of role I liked, especially because I wasn't like involved with churches in that role. I was more just businessy.
Yeah.
So I went into a pretty deep depression, and I remember I was sitting in a hotel room, like in a corner, crying and not knowing what to do.
Yeah.
And this isn't anything against MXU because it's not their fault. I just chose to go into the wrong role.
Yeah.
And so my wife and I ended up going to counseling and basically decided I need to do what my one love was ministry. And for a season at least, just do that instead of trying to do 2 jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we thought at the time, well, that stinks because financially we were about to be in a really good spot because MXU was paying me well. Plus I was making money part-time at the church too. So like combined, it was like golden.
Yeah.
And so we're like going back into church ministry, churches don't pay well, right? And so that was a struggle for us, was thinking like, can we make it financially going back? Knowing that we were already in a financial bad place.
Yeah.
We were just starting to come out of. And then thankfully as I was looking for places, I was really looking for a worship pastor role, but we didn't want to leave the local area we were in.
Yeah.
And the church we visited, Life Fellowship, where we're at now, before they had I didn't visit because of a position. We visited because we wanted to try out some churches in the area while we were in that season of just
Oh, that's
waiting.
awesome. Just to attend.
Yeah. While we were just in the waiting season of
Yeah.
not knowing what's next. And so we attended there, loved it, loved the service, loved the way that people engaged with us. And so I looked on their website and there was a production position. I'm like, man, I don't want to do production.
Yeah.
I want to do worship.
Yeah.
But I applied because I know production. And I know production because I worked for MXU, which is a production training company. Renewed Vision they make software for production.
Yep.
And then all the churches I worked at previously, I had to oversee it, even though they were small.
Yeah.
And so I applied for the role. And then when I interviewed, I told them, hey, I'm really looking for a worship role, but I saw this open. And so I'm interested because I know production. Like, is there some way you could like tickle my, my heart and let me lead worship every once in a while? And so we made that work.
Yeah.
And so I get to lead worship and be a part of the team.
That's awesome.
And so I still get that part of me, like, getting to.
Dude, that's awesome. I'm sure the church was like, oh, bummer. I guess you can also lead worship. That's so cool though, man. So because of your like seat, originally doing so much of worship, that's like where your heart is. You now get to do some of that. You're in a very small percentage, I would say, of production people that can also do worship. Or I would say there's more worship pastors that can semi-do production. Would you say that's right? You're like, no.
I'm not gonna say.
You're like, no.
I'm not committing to any stats.
But like, what are the things that you're like, man, I really wish now that you're a production person, I would have known as a worship leader that you learned after being on
What do the
staff
worship
there?
leaders listening need to know about their production person's
no
experience?
kidding, man.
I would say every production person is different. So you have some that are technical and then you have some that are creative. Myself being more of a creative one, it's hard when you have a worship team who expects you to be technical. And so I've built a great relationship now that doesn't exist anymore at Life Fellowship. But when I started, they assumed I was just technical.
Sure.
Because I was in a production role.
Yep.
And so it was very hard when like lighting is under production, but they would come back and give feedback on lighting. And I'm like, this is our area. And I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but like allow us to be creative in this area. And it wasn't even their job to give feedback on that. They were so used to giving it to a technical person who didn't have the creative side.
Right.
And that's fair. So if someone doesn't have a creative side, someone needs to come alongside them and help them. And so it's just be aware of like there's differences in production people. Not everyone's the same. And so our staff, unfortunately, is mostly creative on the production side. We need more technical people to help us, but that's another topic. But like you may have a team that's more technical, help support them. See if they're okay with you supporting them and come alongside them, build a relationship and help support them in that creative side. But if they're more creative, see how you can allow them to be empowered to do their thing and to be creative in that way.
And the empowerment looks different in those two like scenarios because a creative person, like by definition, has opinions of like what they think looks good or sounds good or whatever. And so then it's becomes a much more of a collaborative team where you as a group of creative production worship people have to define like, what does it look like and feel like at Life Fellowship? Like what is our church's expression of creativity? And we agree on that and then we create in that lane. We don't all just do our own thing, whatever we like best, but you're including everyone in that conversation to define like what your brand is a little bit. Which a technical person is just like, just tell me what to do and I'll go do that thing, right? Versus a creative person that has a voice. Not that you shouldn't. You should absolutely include technical people in those conversations because it helps them capture, understand what you're doing anyway. But yeah, it's just different communication styles.
Yeah, I was with a bunch of production guys earlier this week, and they were all sitting around dinner table when we were talking about just some of their challenges. Large multi-site church, 15 production staff across all these campuses, and all of these guys are together, just kind of hanging out. And there was some conversation that I walked into where, basically they're talking about their worship pastors and, hey, we don't tell you how to do worship. Don't tell us how to do production. And this was in maybe a not so great conversation, about that, but it opened up a lot of discussion about like, hey, how much relationship do we have with these worship pastors so that when they come to us and say these things, like, how do we respond in that way? And one of the guys said something like, dude, if like this worship pastor that was at his campus isn't doing this one thing that they wanted to, I don't know, I think it was like in Ableton, or something. And he's like, if I can stop and do this thing that's only going to take me 5 minutes and it's going to make all of us happier, but it's not technically my job, why would I not do that to make the experience better for everybody when they walk into on the weekend? And we were all like, yes, like 100%. Like even when it's not your role or if your worship leader isn't gifted in that technical area, which is what they were having some issues in. Hey, me stepping up to do something that's outside of my job description that's going to help the church as a whole or the culture of our campus or staff or whatever is only going to, make those things better. So, let's keep doing that, basically, because it can be a very hard line between the people on the stage and the people that are in the booth, and whatever is said over talkbacks or, mics to one another can be very good or very bad sometimes. How you interact matters a lot when you do that. So
yeah, I think serving people goes a long way. And so, I mean, like you're saying, like that person went out of their way to take on a part of a role that wasn't theirs, but it's serving that worship pastor. And I think that starts to build relational equity with them.
Totally.
I think the more that we're just willing to serve and not be like, oh, this isn't my role, I'm not going to touch it. Yeah. I think that goes.
That comes from a place of like, don't be a jerk, like just like, it just boils down. Like why is your instinct like an us versus them or a like, sucks to be you, I'm not helping you. Like what is that coming from? And how do you get to a healthier place where it's like, hey, we're a team and it's my joy to help you with this thing that I can speak into. And I want to see all of us succeed. And how do we do that together? I don't know if you feel like that bitterness or resentment building up, like don't neglect that. Like what is that? How do you get to the root of that and maybe start to have a different perspective?
Yeah. And when I started at Life Fellowship, there was this, I had never experienced this before, Life Fellowship, maybe because I was doing both things. I was doing worship and production. But when I got to Life Fellowship, I experienced very drastically the us versus them thing from both sides. Yeah. Like I could tell our team was that way to them, and I could tell that obviously their team was that way to us. And so it took a lot of work for us to break that. And I think the biggest thing was building relationships. But there's a lot of different steps to how to build a relationship, right? Yeah. And the more that we realized we need to stay out of each other's lanes, the more it allowed us to be in each other's lanes. Because the worship team was trying to always like get the production team to do certain things. Yeah. But the reality at our church, the way that we're structuring it is like worship isn't overproduction. We're all individual ministries. We just want to work really well together. Yeah. And so I was like, we're not really working well together, so let's figure out how to do that. And so the worship was doing that to production, but production had like the anger inside them because of that. And so that was felt by worship. Yep. And so it was just a cycle. Yep. And so I just like, as we've started talking as a team, I mean, over the past year, it's a drastic difference. And part of that is we said, like the department heads got together and we said, hey, we need to over communicate things all the time. We need to, like, if something is going to change on Sunday morning, everybody needs to know. Yeah. Let's do a group chat and let's say that thing, because it affects everybody, even if we might think it affects us. Totally. And so like over communicating everything is huge. The other thing was allow each area to come with their idea for their area. Yeah. And as we started doing that, like we're planning Christmas, we're planning Easter, the creative team will come with like the major theme for the series or whatever we're doing. And then the worship team will build set lists based off of that. And the production will be like, okay, here's what we'll do with lighting. Here's what we'll do with stage design. Yeah. But then because we've started doing this, like where we all come together and it's not just like, everyone says, oh, you should do this song, or creative team's like, oh, production should do this, lighting. Yeah. It's actually allowed us to ask for feedback from those people and be like, what do you think of this? And so it's opened up, like, we intentionally created these barriers where everyone's staying in their lane. But it's opened up us the ability to ask for feedback, which I think allows for more relationship than just trying to force yourself into each individual lane.
Yeah. Well, because you're coming to it from a place of respect. Like, you know that the other team members around the table trust you to run with the thing that you're running with. And that just feels like a safer place to then be like, hey, like, I'd love your input on this, versus feeling like they don't trust me. They don't think I'm able to do a good job or whatever. Like, that, again, naturally, for better or for worse, builds up walls, you know, in people.
Yeah. Because though, I mean, I'm just thinking back to so many different like creative meetings that are, you know, in October planning for Christmas, and like the tension in the room with 18 of us and all having different opinions, and then everybody latches onto some, you know, idea that a worship leader has, and I'm like, gosh dang it, how the heck are we supposed to support that and staying silent and, you know, figuring out how to communicate that in a way that's helpful. But I do love what you're saying, and the ability where, as you have, you know, focused on your own lane, for that feedback and asking for feedback all of a sudden breaks down those walls very, very quickly to go, oh, like, I didn't know that you would even ask my opinion on this. Well, actually, and you know, whether worship leaders asking me for some feedback in that way, it goes very, very far, and it stops resentment or bitterness from happening before it even starts, because you're able to get their feedback before you even do something.
And I'd say too, like, if you sense that you're in a relationship like that or in a team dynamic like that, like, be the one to take the first step and, you know, ask for input, ask for collaboration, ask for feedback, like, demonstrate that posture, because that's what then starts to chip away at whatever the wall was, and it starts to be reciprocated over time. And, you know, someone's got to take that first initial step, and you might not be in a seat in the bus who, you know, leading all the teams to sort of say, hey, this is what we're doing, guys. But you can lead up or sideways to your peers and start to model that in a way that trickles out.
Yeah. That's cool. So now that I guess, when did you transition to the role that you're in now? Like, when did you officially make that switch?
January 2023.
Okay, got it.
So 2.5, going on 3 years.
Yeah, got it. So like, now as you're looking into this next season for you and the team at your church, like, is there anything that you guys are focused on, from, you know, it could be anything from technical or all the way to cultural, of, you know, growing or anything like that, just in this season that you guys are in?
Yeah. So interesting season for us. We as a church, we launched a new campus last year, and we actually just announced a week ago that they're going to have a permanent facility.
Nice.
Planning by Easter. I don't know how construction happens, but I know it doesn't happen in 9 months, but we'll see.
Wait, is it a ground up build?
Yeah. We're trusting. We're trusting. We've had architects and engineers, and some have promised, so we'll see. But
all right.
If not,
crazy.
Oh well. But we're praying for God for miracles, and
that's awesome.
So we're in the process now of taking. You know, we have 2 campuses right now. We're gonna have a third one in the next few years. But our second campus is now getting a home. You know, that they can call permanent.
Yeah, it's huge.
And so we're having to think through, okay, how do we do staffing for that? Because right now we're portable. We have a Sunday morning only ministry.
Yeah.
So then now we're going to have youth group. We're going to have YA. We're going to have all these different things. That affects every ministry. But also in the production world, that means what was just a Sunday morning contract position is going to have to become more.
Yeah.
And on top of that, every church goes through different budgeting seasons. And so like right now we're in a season where we actually changed the way we're budgeting. So while financially we're in a good spot, it looks like compared to last year, we're not. We are though. It's just the way that they're budgeting is different this year.
Sure.
And so it's a good thing for the future, because the way it's going to help us will be great. But because of that, we're like not hiring right now.
Yeah.
And so we're also not contracting as much. And so it's like, I lost 2 of my production people. We have 4 of us at the main campus.
Okay.
And I lost 2 of them because one of them decided to go to construction.
Okay.
I love him, but church.
Maybe he can go do your ground up build.
Yeah. He's awesome. He's an incredible sound guy.
That's awesome.
But his heart was never like, he didn't want to do church ministry forever. And that's totally fine. And the other one, he's going to intern at a huge church.
Okay.
So now we're down to 2 people, but I can't hire anyone. And we're starting a new campus full time. So I'm like,
that's
oh
tough.
gosh.
That's tough.
The good thing is over the past year and a half, we've really built a volunteer team that can do core positions, not just support positions. And so when I came to the church, one of the philosophies was like, hey, we're going to pay someone because we want that done well.
Yeah.
Where I've really tried to push our leadership and we've really worked on, hey, it's okay if things aren't perfect, but if we can raise up saints to do the ministry, like that's what we're called to do.
Yeah.
And so we have 2 volunteers who run audio. That never would have happened 3 years ago. But today I wouldn't be surviving with the 2 people on my team at a large multi-campus church with 2 people if I didn't have more people who are getting into core positions.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the season we're in right now is like, we lost the people, we have the volunteers, so now we're just like really empowering them to do it. But I'm also kind of scrambling to make sure I find more and help them get into those roles.
It is an interesting dynamic though, because I think like we all know, and this was myself, years ago, of wanting to hire more people on my team to help me because the workload was high, which was very true. But it always ended up being oh, woe is me because the church won't hire, whatever, because of staffing problems or budget problems, whatever. When the reality is like, if we had higher capacity volunteers, or if we developed the volunteers that we had to take some of that workload off of the weekend or whatever that looks like, it can be a huge relief as a full-time staff member would. And I think so many people don't always look at it like that and view it as, well, a volunteer is only going to be able to do this level of work and whatever the bar of excellence is. And so that's not a solution, but I love like hearing that and being able to have a couple of guys who are mixing every week to cover a position that I'm sure a staff member or contractor was doing at some point previously in the past.
I just have a big thing against like everything has to be perfect. And excellence I feel like is thrown around, but they really mean perfect. And so for me, it's like, why? I hate the word excellence when you're really just saying perfect. Go ahead and just say perfect.
Yeah.
Like that's what you want. You're not saying excellent.
Yeah.
I don't get that. But if we can kind of position people into thinking excellence is doing the best we can, and we're going to try hard, but knowing that failures will happen, like mistakes will happen.
Yeah.
I think it's hard sometimes for people to see that because especially when they see big churches and all they see is the perfection coming out of those churches. Not necessarily because it is perfect at those churches, but because they see the social side, just like we do in everybody's lives at home, right?
Curated.
Yeah, so our Instagram lives are curated. So is that church's.
Yep.
I mean, we're doing it at our church.
That's totally true.
So what you don't know is like Gateway Church has 2 big audience-facing issues every single weekend. We had 1, and you're complaining about that one.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I feel like there has to be a teaching just for leadership, like senior pastors. Yeah. And you have to build a relationship first to do that too. But to come alongside them and be like, hey, the reality is we're not perfect, but we're not gonna get this perfect. And they might not think you are. You might be putting that expectation on yourself. But if you're sitting in a meeting and all you ever hear is this went wrong, this went wrong, this went wrong, there is a perfection mindset there.
Yeah.
And so I think starting to like get into their ears that, hey, things go wrong elsewhere, even in the big churches.
Yes.
That helps because I don't think they see that when they see the social media.
Of course not.
Yeah, totally.
But for me, it's like I want these volunteers to be able to grow. Like otherwise, I wouldn't be here today if someone hadn't poured into me.
Yeah.
And so when I was in junior high and the worship leader at our church was pouring into me, he didn't have to. Like he could have just decided just to lead worship on Sundays and not care about the student, right?
Yeah.
But I care about students today because someone poured into me is when I was a student.
Yeah.
And so I want the next generation to keep growing. And so I'm going to keep investing in them because otherwise we're not going to have more of me, more of people leading worship, more people doing production.
Yep. It's good.
Yeah. It's that level of leadership starts from the top. And I think, when you think of perfection / excellence in a church like that, like you do have to have leadership that feels similar, you know what I mean? Where, those things are, when those things are different, it can be a lot of friction, I think, with staff members and volunteers and stuff like that. But I love that your heart and the way that you lead is from that place. And I'm sure that it, even as a volunteer, that feels more empowering than this fear of messing up if I do something
I think
wrong
the
Sunday
sort of
morning.
like conundrum or the like catch-22 is the more you focus on, say, perfection and have a pressure around that, the more stressful the environment can be, right? So it's like actually creating an environment where people feel safe and like they're part of the team and that everyone's got their best interests in mind and they're cheering for them. Like that actually, in the long run, leads to better services and more consistent quality of like, we hit our cues and we did a good job. And like, because people show up, they want to give their best. They want to grow and do better. And they feel like they can try things and step into things with more responsibility in a safe place versus a more fear-based experience. So you're actually kind of counteracting your own goal if you're creating a very pressure, fear, kind of like afraid to make a mistake kind of environment, because like that's not where people do their best work. That's not where people learn and grow. So I think it's like reframing what perfection even is.
For sure, man. I wish my wife was here. It's like a marriage podcast. So one thing that like I had to learn with my relationship with my wife was that if I kept coming to her with her about something, and this may have stemmed from like her past and like trauma and things like that, but if I kept coming and asking for something, and she didn't do it, and she usually kind of backed down and got like in her shell, like me forcing the issue wasn't going anywhere. Yeah. And I think it's kind of similar in that like if we keep pushing perfection, all it does is tell the people, hey, you're not good enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you keep messing up. Where if you start giving praise and encouragement, and occasionally call out the mistakes, the ones that they might not have noticed because that's what needs to be called out. I think that helps to help the person grow.
That's so right. Yeah. And people know. It's not like they need, like if they miss something, like it's not like they don't know that they missed something, right? You don't need to go and point it out necessarily. Yeah. But it's like you said, it's like the calling everyone to like what we're doing as a team, and not, like hyper focusing on just the mistakes. Like, it makes people want, you don't have to tell them to get better. They want to naturally get better because they're part of something they're excited about and they see the like possibilities of what the team can do together.
Yeah. And I feel the effects of that right now because you're asking like, what are we doing in a season right now? Our church leadership is healthy. Like they are trusting of us. They want to see the best in us. And there was a season when I first came on board where I felt like that perfectionist thing was there, and we've addressed that. And so I think addressing things is important. Like I have an oversight, and that person talked to the executive pastor, and over time, like the conversations happened that really moved the needle from like, let's have Monday morning meetings that are just, everyone talks bad about production, to let's say what happened well in our ministry or didn't go well in our ministry, and everyone bring that to the table. And then if the executive pastor or whoever's there needs to bring up something, they can bring up something too. But usually we address the bigger things individually with the oversight instead of just all together where it just becomes this like, but because of that, I feel like it's a lot healthier now. Yeah. And so I actually, as a staff member, want to help it succeed more too. And so like we're trying to think through things as a production team, like how can we do better? Right now, even though we're not constantly being told things are going wrong. Yeah. We're still thinking, how can we do better and better? And we're excited about doing that because like we get encouraged and because, all that happens.
Right. It just totally flips the motivation. Like you want staff and volunteers that are self-motivated, not that are always having that have to come from an external source. Like it's always way more effective if it's out of like their own energy and excitement that they're working on things.
Totally. Dude, it's been awesome chatting and, just hearing a little bit of your story and, what you're doing now. And I think, there's so many pieces of, I don't know, growth that we can bring into our own seasons in the roles that we're at in ministry or outside of ministry, whether you're working full-time in a church or you're working as a marketing guy in some other corporate organization and going, hey, how can I continue to serve the church and lead that?
Maybe I need to find out my Enneagram.
You don't know your
I'm
Enneagram?
joking. I'm saying in like a rhetorical.
Oh, okay.
I know my Enneagram.
What is your Enneagram again?
3.
Oh, yeah. Classic.
The
3.
best Enneagram. Duh.
But anyways, you post lots of fun videos on social media and walking through your space and training and how you set up crazy things on Stream Decks and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, Cody's got some great Stream Deck content.
Man, Stream Deck is the greatest piece of production gear that has come into existence in the last 10 years, I think, is what it is.
If you don't want to spend money on QSys, just get Stream Deck.
Yes.
Or here's the thing, dude. Churches that have QSys also have Stream Decks.
Yeah,
so
that's
it's like
us.
it's gonna be there.
Exactly, dude. Yeah. But if people want to like check out that stuff or get in contact with you on social media, like what's the best way for them to reach out?
Search Cody Patterson, you'll find me. But Cody N Patterson, my social handles,
Got it.
TikTok, Instagram, YouTube.
Dude, that's awesome, man. Well, thank you again for, this conversation. And I'm excited to just see and watch what God does in your life and everything that you're doing at the church and leading and stuff like that. So I think it's awesome. Love this conversation. And for those of you listening, we will see you all next week.